What's up, gamer? My name's Zuluko, and today I wanted to share a bit of my feedback on Path of Exile 2's Dawn of the Hunt after finally reaching 50 hours of playtime in the update. First of all, as I think just about everyone who played it noticed, the campaign is pretty rough right now compared to how it was in 0.1. It took me about 17 hours to get from beginning to end, and that was after doing practice runs before the update, where it kind of seemed like I'd be able to get through the campaign in more like 6 to 8 hours. So that was kind of what I was looking forward to, and then we got hit with 17 hours before reaching maps, and I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty disappointing, but once I did get to the end game and I started getting some gear upgrades and like a new weapon and stuff like that, the game actually started to feel a whole lot better really quickly. So I kind of ended up feeling like the devs were so focused on rebalancing all of the skills for the end game to bring everyone down from the crazy levels that things were getting to in 0.1. They cut all the scaling in, down at the knees, and then that just kind of trickled down to a pretty terrible feeling in the campaign early on. Honestly, at first I thought that they had buffed the monsters in the campaign in addition to nerfing all of the players' abilities, and that's what caused the problem. But according to the Zizarin interview on April 8th, the devs actually said they didn't really change campaign monsters in particular at all. So I guess that was just all from the nerfs, and yeah, it's definitely a little bit out of control for right now. I think another problem I was having with my time in the campaign is that I started as a huntress with the spear, and I was trying to use elemental abilities and try and piece together a couple that worked into a nice little combo flow, but it turns out no matter what I did, none of the combos really did damage. They were kind of annoying to play, and I was just kind of frustrated the whole time. The damage numbers are a problem for sure on spear, but more importantly for me, I just don't really think I like the playstyle they're going for with that weapon. So after beating Jamin-Ra in Act 2, I ended up switching to a bow build with gas arrow to level with, and now in Endgame I'm playing lightning arrow, and that's actually been a really good time. But yeah, those first few acts with the spear were rough. As annoying as these nerfs have been, and as frustrating as it can be to feel weak in an ARPG, I am still confident that the devs will get the game into a good state. I think it's just going to take time. People say it all the time, but this game is still in early access, and yes, people can voice their opinions and say this is bad, and they shouldn't do stuff like this, and how could they think this was a good idea? But overall, I'm really not that worried about the future of the game. Like, the launch of Dawn of the Hunt still had something crazy like 250,000 people playing it at the same time on the launch weekend. So I don't think the game's really going anywhere. I see people saying like, oh, the game's gonna die if they don't fix this right now. And I just don't think that's true. I think that's a little excessive. I think with time and a couple updates, it'll all get worked out eventually. So yeah, I'm not really that worried that some parts of the game feel bad right now. The thing that's actually been bothering me most about how the devs have handled this whole update is their reaction to the feedback on zone size. I think a very, very large portion of people who played the game and got at least as far as the end of the campaign could pretty immediately feel that a lot of the zones were too big, particularly in Act 3 and even some in Acts 1 and 2 as well. So that's been feedback they've been getting this whole time, and this whole time they've kind of been giving the same response of, y'all think that the zones are too big because we're not putting enough in the zones, when really it's because the zones are too big. If you watch some of the Q&As with the devs, it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly that a lot of the solutions they have to implement to solve a lot of the problems players have are not that simple. Like, players could be having a problem with one system, and then that's actually caused by some other problem with some other system that seems totally unrelated. And by fixing that one unrelated looking problem, they solve the original problem. And that's just a symptom of how complex Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2 are in general. So it makes sense that they think that way. And I understand why the devs may be hesitant to immediately go for the kind of obvious solution of just making zones smaller. But with how universal that one specific piece of feedback has been, because it's something I felt immediately, it's something I expressed to people, like in my Discord and just people I know who play the game, and they all agreed. I've met very few people who disagreed and thought the zones were actually an okay size. The solution the devs keep suggesting when the large zone problem comes up is that they just need to add more stuff to the zones for players to do so that it doesn't feel like you're walking through a big open field or like a big maze full of dead ends that have nothing in them. They just need to put things in those dead ends to make it more interesting. And that might work for maps, it might not, but particularly for the campaign, I know after I've done the campaign like 5 times, I'm probably not that interested in anything I'm gonna find in that campaign anyways. Like, my goal is just to get to maps as quickly as possible, because whatever I'm gonna do, whatever I can do in the campaign, I can do it better in maps. So I just want to get there as quickly as possible, and I don't care if there's like a hidden strongbox in the longest dead end on the map that I have to then backtrack and or find a checkpoint and like go to the actual objective. So I think that's not really as much of a solution, particularly for the campaign, as they may think it is. And I really hope they realize that. And they have already said that they're looking into reducing the sizes of some of the zones in Act 3, or at least removing some of the dead ends. So maybe that'll make things feel better, but we'll see. Other than the very specific details of this particular problem and their response to that feedback, in general, I think opening up the game in early access to get feedback from players and then ignoring probably one of the most universal points of feedback, it just doesn't really feel very good to the people giving that feedback. And I hope they're a little more cautious of that kind of thing in the future. So yeah, that's how I feel about the early game problems and how the devs have responded to them. So I guess next we should talk about the endgame. If I'm being honest, the endgame feels a whole lot better now than it did in patch 0.1. Honestly, when they announced the changes that they were making to towers, I didn't think they were going to be that big of a deal, because I kind of thought towers are annoying and I don't want to do any of them at all, ever. So I was kind of hoping they would just like scrap that idea and let me keep running like actual real maps. But now that I've tried it, I think it actually feels really cool. Getting to use one tower and then throw 3 tablets in there, and then all 3 tablets just kind of blast new mechanics all over the that zone of the Atlas. It's actually really satisfying, so I've been having fun with it. On top of that, Rogue Exiles are cool. Again, I thought they were kind of lame and annoying in Path of Exile 1, so when they announced, well, we're adding Rogue Exiles, I was not that excited, but now I'm actually like really happy anytime I run into them, because they drop so much gear compared to anything else in this game, and it's cool to see if they have uniques or not, and the fights themselves are actually kind of cool. I like the Azmeri Wisps better than I thought I would. I also thought Tormented Spirits in Path of Exile 1 were kind of lame, so when I heard, oh, we're getting Rogue Exiles and Tormented Spirits, great. But it turns out I think the Wisps work a lot better than the Tormented Ghosts do. I just think they're a little unclear at first, because I've heard people say they're not that rewarding, and they're not hugely rewarding, but you can actually get a little more out of them if you interact with them properly. Which, to interact with it properly and get the most out of it, you have to try and drag monsters into the ghost's aura, get them covered in the ghost dust, and then kill them before the ghost reaches the rare. And the more stuff you kill that has been like possessed or whatever, the better the rewards from that rare will be. So it's still not crazy dropping 20 Exalts and 5 Divines and 3 Mirrors all the time, but it's kind of a fun little mini game to do while you're chasing the ghost around. I've only done 2 of the new unique maps, but they were both pretty cool. One was the Azmeri Wildwood, which is just the Affliction Wildwood from Path of Exile 1, but instead of finding Wildwood juice to boost the monsters in your map, the entire map is the Wildwood. So you're just kind of running around for a while in the dark looking for stuff, and you can find little omen towers that give you free omens, and some of them are different from the rest of the stuff. I think those are pretty cool, and I've had fun every time I've gone in that map. The other one I did was a giant boat that gave me a bunch of gold. I wasn't exactly upset about that, and it didn't take a whole lot of time, so yeah, having maps that get me rich are great. I think reviving in maps is a really nice addition. I didn't mind the 0 death maps all the time, but it did get pretty frustrating sometimes to lose the whole thing because you stood in a non-death explosion. But it turns out reviving in maps actually feels a little less punishing than dying does in the campaign, and that was the whole reason they added reviving to maps, was because they said dying in the campaign gives you one expectation, and then you reach maps and then it's a totally different expectation. But dying in the campaign revives all the monsters in the map, and that does not happen in maps. So yeah, it's a little easier, but I honestly don't mind it. I think probably the most important change to the endgame that has been making it feel a lot better is the change to the map sustain system, being practically guaranteed to sustain the waystone that you used if you complete the map, and guaranteed to get another waystone of the next tier up if you beat a map boss at that tier, is a very deterministic way to progress, and I think it feels really good. Way better than trying to like get all these plus to levels on my maps so I can sustain my waystones of 2 tiers below the level of the zone I'm actually running, and then 3 to 1 on my lower tier maps to get all the tier 13s I need to give me a chance to get tier 14s or something. I don't know. It was rough before, but now it's not. It's great, and I love it, and I hope they never backtrack on that one. I haven't quite made it to tier 15 yet, or the pinnacle bosses or anything like that. So the last thing I want to talk about is Recombinators. They're actually really sick. I like Recombinators in Path of Exile 2 way more than I like them in Path of Exile 1. And a lot of people are getting distracted by the clips of people with absurdly low chances of success for picking like 2 mods or or maybe 3 mods or something like that. But even with those extremely low odds of success, Recombinators are like absurdly powerful. Because if that absurdly low chance succeeds, and you add max percent increased physical damage, and max flat physical damage, and maximum plus crit chance, and like maximum attack speed onto one weapon, you're just using that weapon forever, almost no matter what the other 2 mods are. So like the chance for that kind of thing has to be absurdly low, because once that item exists, there's no getting rid of it. I certainly would never get rid of it. And they don't want us to get all of our perfect gear so quickly that we feel like we're done with the game because my character is perfect now. 2 days after I got to maps, you know? So yeah, despite the low odds of success, I think it's a really, really good system. There is one gripe that I do have with the Recombinators though, and that's that they're locked behind running Expedition all the time, which is and has pretty much always been one of my least favorite League mechanics of all time. I really hate wiggling the little explosive around to try and see what I can reach and what I can't reach, and like see if I can get the things I want without hitting the remnants that are gonna break my build or anything like that. I hate dealing with that. So if we could use Recombinators without ever having to interact with Expedition, I'd be much happier, but I am glad they're in the game. And I will be running Expedition regardless, because Recombinators are honestly too powerful to ignore. That's about all I've got to say on this update for right now. I hope you found it interesting. I hope everybody agrees with me, because my opinions are always right. And if you like this video, make sure you smack the like button and subscribe for more like it. And I will see you in another video.